Hey, it's me, NT, and welcome to my walkthrough of the Dark Forest. I'm going to be showing you how to get all the way to the end of the game and beat the end boss. Okay, so this is your main resource gathering box. I'm going to hit Explore. I'm going to get a nice little bit of dialogue over here, and you see from hitting Explore, I got 1 land. That's one of our basic resources. Scavenge is going to give us 1 food. Now at this point, you just have to wait for these bars to go down. Once the bar is finished ticking down, you can click it again. Now I can click Explore, it's finished ticking. Explore gave me another thing. I can dredge the creek. Now I just continue to wait for these bars to go down. Scavenge came up. Every time the bar empties, you want to click it. Eventually the cat comes up, it starts talking to you. I'm not sure if it matters what answer you give him. I just keep saying, yes, I am lost. There'll be a little bit more dialogue from the cat. Just progress that while continuing to gather your resources. You see, we're going to get a second column here. This is your tools column. And if we look down here at the bottom, right here, it shows the costs. Let's go ahead and finish up the cat's dialogue. He says that he's going to double our raw resources, save when, don't wait too long. I don't think there's a time limit for when he doubles your resources, but I usually use it at the beginning just to give me a little boost. Crafting a fire pit costs 1 fiber, 1 flint, 1 land, 2 stone, and 3 wood. We can see over here that we don't have my fiber. That's because it's going to be further down in the resource collection, and we have to continue exploring to open up all the resource collection right now. Or some of the resource collection is also dependent on getting your tools. Or we do have 1 fiber now. We probably got that from dredging. So let's go ahead and make our fire pits. Good deal. And at this point in the game, we have unlocked population. Population is actually going to be the bulk of your automation. Right now we have 1 peasant. 1 peasant creates 1 food. We could take this peasant and assign him as a clay baker, in which case he will make 1 brick. But now we can't make any bricks because we have no clay. And we can see right here that we have not applicable clay production. What that means when you see NA is something is trying to pull from this resource, but it's not there. Since we don't have the clay to fuel brick production, we're going to put him back as a peasant. Hitting negative here unassigns him, automatically assigns him to peasant, and now we're getting +1 food. So we're just going to go back to the forest camp, continue doing all our resources. You see that our tools grow every time we do it. Our main goal is to build a house, but until we start getting a good method of producing clay, that's going to be very difficult. So we'll just go in order. We need an axe first, which we can get. Now we can start chopping wood. And you see, now that we have an axe, we can take our peasant and put him into lumberjack. And since we have a surplus of food right now, we can just let the lumberjack continue eating the food we already built up. Food is a basic resource in this game. Without food, people won't work, or they won't work well. So we'll just continue clicking all of our resource collecting, and we're going to look at what we need to craft a pickaxe. 1 fiber, 5 stone, 3 wood. Dredging gives us stone, so I could go ahead and make this. Okay, once I've got enough resource for each thing, I'm going to go ahead and buy it. Remember to continue going through all your things. Remember, though, if you dig clay and then bake clay, it's going to immediately consume the clay you just dug in case you need clay for something. Now we have plenty of wood from our lumberjack, but we're out of food. I'm just going to take him back out so we can build food back up. Once food builds back up, we could maybe do like a clay digger because I'm a little short on clay. And I'm just going to continue clicking all of my resource gathering things here because my next goal is to build a house, which is going to give me more population, and then we can really start getting into the automation part of this game. As soon as I hit 5 bricks, which I just did, I'm going to let the cat double my resources. He's going to wander off, but now I have enough to build a house. Once you have a house, the house will produce 4 new peasants. It will produce 1 peasant for every tick. A tick is 5 seconds. And now we're up to 5 peasants. And as you see, that means every tick I get 5 food. Now that I have stockpiled food, I can start assigning other roles. Now our main goal at this point is to build houses. Remember that costs 10 brick, 2 land, 5 stone, and 20 wood. Now I can get all those materials fairly quickly, as you can see, except it takes a hot minute to get more land, and it takes 2 land to build a house. So I would suggest that you focus on explorers. Okay, so now that we have our explorer will find land for us. It produces 1 land, costs 3 food, and 1 torch. Now the explorer introduces the idea of cascading requirements, which is, sure, the explorer only requires 3 food and 1 torch. If we have 3 peasants, then we're making enough food for the explorer. But we actually don't have quite enough peasants yet because the explorer has cascading requirements because of this torch. Because the torch, in addition to the explorer requirements, you need a torchman, which requires 1 coal and 1 fur. The coal miner requires 1 food. The hunter requires 1 food. So that means you actually need 4 peasants to assign and 4 food per tick to make a land every tick. We don't have that, but I have food built up and we can just continue using that until we can make more houses. So let's go ahead and make more land. We're going to assign 1 explorer, 1 torchman, 1 coal miner, and 1 hunter. Now, as you can see over here, these are our totals. This is how much resources we currently have in stockpile. These are how much we're using. Since I have an explorer, every tick I'm getting 1 land, but because I have only 1 peasant creating food, we are at a net loss for food. We're losing 3 food every tick. Not an issue, I have it built up, but we're also losing 1 wood, as you can see by the -1 right here. It's taking every tick, it's taking 1 wood out of our stockpile. And mousing over wood, I can see in my resource menu exactly what's taking it. It's the torchman. To make a torch, I need 1 coal, 1 fur, and 1 wood. Torchman is in red, it requires a wood. Lumberjack is in green, it will give a wood. So we'll do that. We are losing food, but I have enough food stockpiled for about 100 ticks, which would give me another 100 land. But right now, if you wanted to go to the restroom, if you wanted to take a break, you can even minimize the game and it continues playing. I think there's a few things where if you minimize it, it will not count. I think they're only in-game things, so better to be safe than sorry. If you have a chance to leave this open, I would do so. However, if you're trying to do this as quickly as possible, you don't really ever want to leave this game until the end game. While you're waiting for that 100 land to show up, or whatever your current goal is, you can continue doing this. We also have craft compass as a goal. If you look over there, I have 3 leather, 2 iron ore, and 4 iron, so let's go ahead and craft the compass. As soon as you craft the compass, the darkness is going to show up, which in this case is a child of darkness. This is a sad little rabbit. You can click the rabbit and do damage. Right now I'm doing 102 damage. There's no real point beating these enemies until you can beat all the enemies in the game. Beating that will unlock your prestige, but until then they're pretty much just distractions. When you beat them, you have a choice between either executing or absolving. But right now that means nothing because we have no swordsman, which is what these bonuses apply to, is swordsman. So, now, as you can see, we can make a sword. So let's click that. And now we have a sword and we can train a swordsman. But training a swordsman requires a peasant. And you need your peasants to be making more peasants, to be making houses for more peasants, to be more precise. Right now, there is no reason to train swordsmen. So what we're going to do is while we wait for our land to continue ticking up, we're going to just be doing the things on the left, and we're going to build houses if we have enough for building a house. At this point, you're probably not because we're focused on land. Okay, I stepped away for just a minute. Now I have 133 land, but I'm down to 150 food. Let's go ahead and unassign everyone just to make it easy to see who we have available. I'm also going to let the food tick up a little bit because, again, we're going to be assigning like everyone we can, essentially. Make sure to continue to keep going over here and doing all of your resources. Now we can't build a house because we need 10 brick and we have 5. We have plenty of land, we have some stone, and we have some wood. So for right now, just starting off, the biggest thing we need are bricks. Have 5 peasants. So I'm going to do 2 clay diggers, 2 clay bakers, and then probably a lumberjack because we also need 20 wood. And I'm just going to let them work while I continue to manually collect resources. As soon as I have enough brick for a house, I build a house. Now, to be resource neutral on making houses, which means that every tick we're making enough materials to make a house, we need 22 lumberjacks, 5 stone miners, 10 clay diggers, and 10 clay bakers. And then also 47 peasants just to feed everybody. So now we're just going to continue manually gathering resources until we have 17 total peasants. Once we hit 17, we can start using a ratio to distribute our peasants. The ratio is this. We're going to want 8 peasants for 4 lumberjacks, for 1 stone miner, for 2 clay digger, to 2 clay baker. So our starting ratio is going to be 8 to 4 to 1 to 2 to 2. Once we have 34 or more peasants, it's going to be the same ratio, 8 to 4 to 1 to 2 to 2. So this time it's going to be 8 lumberjacks, 2 stone miners, 4 clay diggers, and 4 clay bakers. Then we're going to go back here and just continue going through all of this. But we're also going to start making a sword and a swordsman. We'll just make a few swordsmen along since we have excess population. At this point, since we have a swordsman, we can either execute, which will increase our click damage by 50% of our swordsman damage, or we can absolve, which is going to increase our swordsman damage by 50%. It's my recommendation that the first go through, you absolve half of the enemies and execute the other half. And then your second go through, you execute the first half, absolve the other half. So let's start off by absolving. We get some more nice dialogue. We get another enemy. And we get our first substance. Substance is going to be permanent upgrades, which is we get this Spirit of the Rabbit. We have 1 spirit, it increases swordsman passive damage by 50%. And as you can see, now that I have 2 swordsmen, I'm doing 3 damage. Their damage has been increased by 50%. Now, beating the first spirit unlocks the Mason, who automatically builds houses, and the Sergeant, who automatically trains swordsmen. Now, the Mason will automatically produce houses for you. And to get to the end game, you want a lot of houses. But the Mason also has the most cascading requirements of any person on this list. To fuel 1 Mason, you need 60 peasants, 22 lumberjacks, 5 stone miners, 10 clay diggers, 10 clay bakers, 7 hunters, 2 coal miners, 2 torchmen, and 2 explorers, for a total of 120 peasants. Since we don't have 120 peasants, we're going to continue increasing materials for the house via the ratio I mentioned earlier, and we're going to continue manually getting resources. That's right. It'll be a bit before we stop doing this. Remember to continue to build houses whenever possible, because that's going to increase your peasant amounts, and skip the last 3 because again, we're not doing combat right now. Okay, so at this point we have 37 peasants, 20 lumberjacks, 5 stone miners, 10 clay diggers, and 10 clay bakers. That is enough people to completely fuel house production with me making it, but that is too slow. So now is the point we're going to get ourselves a Mason, and we herald the dawn of a new era, the age of automation. To pay for the Mason, we need 5 hunters, because a hunter makes fur. The Mason requires 5 fur to work. Now at this point, we are positive at everything but land. But since we have land stockpiled, we're going to be able to just let the Mason go for a while until we can start fueling an explorer as well. We need 120 total peasants to fuel 1 Mason. As you can see, we actually have that much in excess. So let's go ahead and add our 2 explorers, 2 torchmans, 2 coal miners, and 2 more hunters. And our 2 lumberjacks to fuel the torchman. As you can see now, everything is in green. That means we are all good to go. You may now safely wander off without fear of anybody running out of anything, and you're going to continually have your peasants tick up. It will still be faster if you continue to go through here and do the same resource gathering, but you don't have to. Now, whether you decide to play passively and leave this game running in the background, or actively where you continue collecting resources, this is going to be probably the longest part of the game because your whole goal is to increase the amount of masons you have. But remember, each mason requires 120 total people working for him. Every time you get a multiple of 120, you can start increasing your people. So the next one I'm going to need is 240 total people. So I'm going to need, instead of 22 lumberjacks, I'm going to need 44. And I can click down here, change my increment to 10, set it up to 44. Now instead of 5 stone miners, I need 10 stone miners. I need 20 clay diggers. I need 20 clay bakers, 14 hunters, 4 coal miners, 4 torchmen, and 4 explorers, and 1 mason. Now we're back into the green again, but instead of making 1 house, we're making 2 houses, which is going to give us 7 peasants per tick. Now the next thing is going to be 360 total people, and then I can continue to go down and etc, etc. Every time I gain another 120 peasants, I can go ahead and distribute them to fuel another mason. This is the exact same technique you're going to be doing for each magnitude, each letter increase, each 0 at the end of these numbers. If it takes 120 peasants to fuel 1 mason, then it takes 1,200 peasants to fuel 10 masons. We have over 1,200 peasants, so the easiest way to reset this is to click on the highest number there is. Go ahead and clear everything out. We have incremented from going up by 1 to going up by 10s. And we're going to use the same formula, but add another 0. If you get impatient, or if you don't want to completely play with these ratios, you can just increment them as you wish, and they'll tell you over here what you're missing. This is just going to be the most efficient way. And you'll just continue doing this, and so on and so forth, all the way up until you get to Q. By the way, the easiest way to find out if it's time to increment is if you have 3 times the amount of peasants than you have lumberjacks. So if you have 22 million lumberjacks and 66 million peasants, go ahead and increment everything by 1 tier. Congratulations! If you've made it this far, you should have infinite houses and max peasants and maybe a few other infinities. Now, an infinity in this game is actually a quintillion, so if you start spending this, it will go down. It's not actual infinity, but these are infinities are what we need for our prestiges. So now that we've hit our max peasant population, it's time to work on our swordsman population. Let's go ahead and unallocate everyone, and then we're going to allocate to sergeants. Now the final number you're looking for should be these. You're looking for 590 peasants, 50 lumberjacks, 180 hunters, 10 tanners, 60 coal miners, 30 torchmen, 30 iron miner, 30 iron smelter, 10 swordsmith, and 10 sergeants. That's going to increment your swordsman by 10 quadrillion a click. And while we're training swordsmen, let's also start making some torches. So we're going to add 10 quadrillion to the lumberjack, 10 to the hunter, 10 to the coal miner, and 10 to the torchman. That's going to use up a surplus, and it's also going to start getting us ready for the last phase before we prestige. Now we have 873,000 swordsmen. Let's go ahead and start finishing up these enemies. Now the first 4 enemies we're going to absolve. They should essentially spawn in, wait for the click, and die. We'll go ahead and absolve that one as well. Same thing, it'll spawn in, wait for the click, and absolve that one. So now we have 4 spirits that have been absolved. The next 4, we're going to execute. Now this enemy, the Angel of Death, the Vessel of Darkness, regenerates every time you kill him, and you can neither execute nor absolve him. Instead, he just gives you soul stones. At this point, you see we're getting 200,000 soul stone per tick, but we need to get up to infinity, to quintillion again, which is going to require a couple prestiges. But now that we have some soul stone, we can go back to the main page. We can't craft a soul, that's the end game, but we can craft a beacon, which lets us go to the last area. This is the heart of the forest. Now I got stuck here for a while the first time I played the game because I had no idea that you could click the heart to destroy it. So we've made it to the prestige, but before we continue, I wanted to let you know that I made a reading on the story of the Dark Forest. If you want to find out the whys before the wherefores, here's a link to it. You can also find a link in the description and at the end of the video. Now, let's see what happens when we prestige. Click Destroy the Heart, and now you have the choice to prestige or not. Each max level resource that you have will grant you 1 singularity, which are prestige points. So we're going to click Not Yet, and we want all these resources to say infinity, and we want this to say 16 of 16 infinity collected. So to do that, super easy. Just go back to the populace, pick one of your missing resources, and devote all your people to that resource. I would suggest starting with land, and then swords, and then torches, because those have cascading requirements. And then eventually you can just do the easy ones. Okay, so at this point, everything should say infinity here. This should say max. Go ahead and click the heart. This time we're going to actually prestige, destroy the heart. I am ready. Okay, now that we've prestiged, we're back at the beginning of the game again, but we did keep a couple things. We kept our experience, which is going to come into play later. We kept our soul stones, and we kept 16 singularities. So let's go ahead and spin them. Okay, so we're going to unlock the Hermit, where the forest clicks scale with experience. We're going to unlock the Emperor, which unlocks cascading assignments. We're going to unlock the Empress, where population works twice as fast. And we're going to unlock the World, where forest clicks can drop the Shadow resource. Now, Shadow resources are down here. We start off with 1 for getting the Prestige, which is the Heart of the Dark Forest. It doubles our resource collection, and every time we gather resources in the forest, there's a chance we'll get another piece of Shadow. Anything from one that gives us a 1% resource bonus to a 50% resource bonus. These bonuses, and the charms we just bought, will help us out in the next phase of the game, which is trying to prestige over and over, faster and faster, so we can buy all the charm upgrades in the Substance tab. Here's all the rest of the charms, and the order I recommend you buy them in. The Hierophant, automated Mason assignment and population, which unlocks the Hanged Man charm. The Hanged Man, Freemasonry does automated sergeant assignment after houses are infinite. Wheel of Fortune, shadow substances drop twice as often, unlocks the Death charm. Strength, forest clicks scale with peasants, unlocks the Temperance charm. Temperance, cooldowns in the forest are 1 second, unlocks the Magician charm. The Tower, houses can hold twice as many people. The Chariot, swordsmen attack twice as fast, unlocks the Judgment charm. The Magician, learn Harvest Forest, click all forest buttons at once. Judgment, automatically decide the fate of defeated enemies. Next, you'll have to save up to 144 singularities, prestiging over and over to get them. When you do, you can purchase Death, reap automated heart rewards from the best timeline. Now, you may have noticed that after you prestige the first time, a best time record appeared above the Heart of the Forest. Well, now that you have the Death charm, there's a current time, a best time, and a death time. Current time is self-explanatory, and the best time is the fastest you've been able to prestige. Death time counts down from your best time, and when it hits 0, you gain the same amount of singularities as your best run, plus 1 Heart of the Forest shadow substance. You want to get your best time down to 30 seconds or less, because our next task is to save up the 616 singularities for the High Priestess. Soulstone harvest is multiplied by total number of collected singularities. Once you have this charm, and your best time for a prestige is 30 seconds or less, the only thing left is to wait. As you can see, I left the game up and running overnight for a total of 9 hours. Sometime during that, I acquired Infinity Soul Stones. Once you get to this point, it's time to beat the game. Go back to the Forest Imperium tab and craft a soul. After a bit of story, it'll be time for the end boss fight. That's right, surprise! This incremental idler has an end boss, and it's a bullet hell no less. You win by touching the Fight Back button, but the trick is the button will cycle through 3 positions on the screen, as shown here, and you have to weave through the cat's bullets to touch the button and to deal damage. The more damage you deal to the cat, the more bullets it spits out, and the more complicated the patterns get. My best tip for this fight is to follow this arc indicated on screen between the buttons, as staying farther away from the cat will give the bullets more time to spread out and leave you more room to dodge. After touching the button and dealing damage to the cat 36 times, you'll have a choice to either execute or absolve the cat. There's no actual ending to the game as a prototype version 1.4, but I did suggest what the ending could be over in my story video of the Dark Forest. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of my walkthrough, and I hope it encourages you to try the game out for yourself. Speaking of encouragement, I'd also encourage you to head down to the subscription button and collect some resources. Until next time, bye!